All right.
Hey, how you guys doing out there? I'm Steven with my friends Gary and Lena Templin.
Hello.
Hi. We're discussing the Bible, the Word of God here, and we have a lot of these discussions with our friend Steven. We just
Yes.
thought we'd let you eavesdrop on one today. And
That's right.
so,
That's right. We're going to talk about the new wineskin today and what it all means. So what is the new wineskin, Gary?
well, I put a couple of scriptures up there on the board. I don't think I put that one up. It has to do with, oh yes, it's Mark 2:22. Sometimes I gotta use these little tricks to, for my memory.
It's four,
Yes.
four twos.
Yeah.
It's 4:2s. Mark's the second book of the New Testament.
Yeah. You know the scriptures too well, Gary. The laws start to creep in and take over, so be careful, okay?
Okay. Where Jesus talked about you can't put old wine, or new wine, into old bottles,
Yes.
And they didn't have bottles in Jesus' day, per se,
Yes.
because the glass industry was just starting to get going.
Was it just invented at that time?
Well, I don't know if invented is the word for it, it's kind of discovered.
Oh, okay.
Right. And actually, they were using them some, but it wasn't widespread. Wine was almost always in wineskins, and of course, if you're a theologian, they'll tell you that the word in the Bible is actually wineskins.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That's the actual term.
Right. And so, you can't put new wine into old wineskins.
Why is that?
Well, the reason would be is that, okay, the old wineskin, it's made of skin, and over time it hardens,
Yes.
and new wine expands, it grows. So if you put the new wine in, and into an old, unexpandable, hard skin, it'll just burst the skin, and the wine and the skin is lost, that's what Jesus says. So you have to have, for new wine that's going to be growing and expanding,
Yes.
you have to have a growing and expanding container. Soft, malleable, flexible skin that's new that can grow with the expansion of the wine. So the wine is a picture of the outpouring of the Spirit in these last days, and we have to have a new expandable structure,
Oh, okay.
a way to hold that wine and contain it.
Oh.
And so we believe the Lord's going to do a new thing, and He's been giving us revelation on the new wineskin, the new structure that He's going to have for this move of the Spirit that's coming.
Now, Lena, I have a question. Can we create that new wineskin within ourselves? Can we do it?
Well, it says that it's a building not made with hands.
Yes.
Talking about the last, the temple of the last days, it's a building not made with hands. So this is something the Lord is doing. He's going to He's going to build this temple, this new container for His glory, out of people. And not just individuals, but the relationships between people, the love, He's going to have a structure of how God's people interact with one another that's going to be the container for His glory.
Oh, wow. Is there a
And that's the new
diagram or
temple.
a system that I can follow to do this?
Well, I think first we need to probably look at the current structure so we know what the new one's going to look at. So what is the current wineskin that most of the Christian world and most of, other religious organizations use the same structure for their meeting and for their fellowship too, not just Christians.
Yes.
So what does that look like?
Well,
You've got your naked sermon, Gary, that you do about that.
Lena and I discussed the Bible on restaurants,
Yes.
And of course, you've been along a few times when we've been on these Johns.
Yes.
And it's good to be aware of the fact that when you're in a public place or a restaurant, there's anywhere from 60 to 85%, sometimes higher, of people around you have some kind of a Christian background or experience or God consciousness at least.
Okay.
So they're not going to be put off by seeing the real thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to be embarrassed about what goes on in public, but when we talk about the Bible in public, sometimes it attracts attention. It's like people when they pray over their food, the people in the restaurant pretty much figure that they're Christians.
Yeah.
Well, if you're discussing the Bible, then they know for sure.
Yes.
So, people would come up to us and say, "Oh, are you Christians?" And we'd say, "Oh yeah, are you Christians?" And then the next, it always follows this right down the line.
Yes.
Well, where do you go to church?
Uh-huh.
Oh, we go to church here. Oh, well, we go to church there, and then everybody sort of got everybody figured out, and then you shake hands and say God bless you, and that's the end of it.
Yes.
So we got fed up with that, and so I developed another approach when they come up and say, "Are you Christian?" I say, "Yes." "Are you?" "Yes." "Where do you go to church?" Instead of going down that road,
Yes.
I say, "I'll tell you what, God's doing something new in this day. If you've got 90 seconds, I'll diagram for you what the Lord is doing for us, has shown us about His government and what He's going to, the changes He's going to make in bringing His kingdom into the next 1,000 years. I'll give you a really quick diagram. They're right here on this napkin if you're interested." Now sometimes they're in too big of a hurry. They really weren't looking for that. They were looking for the handshake and goodbye, God bless you.
Yeah.
But occasionally people do want to see what you're talking about, and so
You were interested when you came to install our satellite. That's how we met you.
Yeah, we met you talking about the same thing we
Right.
installed our satellite did.
You caught me off guard. I thought we were gonna shake hands and go. We're
Right.
Christians.
Yeah. And so I'll put on the board what I put on
On the napkin?
the napkin.
Okay.
Now, what Lena was talking about in the fact that you can't put new wine into old wineskins because they'll burst them.
Yeah.
One of the things that's happened, historically with all the moves of God is that they've ended up trying to put them into the old wineskin. There's been a lot of moves of God, even prior to the Reformation, to Martin Luther and the Reformation.
Yes.
God has dealt with people to, give them new understanding and new experiences. And there's been tremendous breakthroughs. But two ways of describing it, two things have really never happened. And that is, there has never been a spiritual structure that would contain it. It's always burst. And though people have made great advances, especially individual Christians, men and women both have made great advances
Yeah.
and breakthroughs and victories over the enemy over the years. What they haven't done is occupy territory. It's always seems like it's gone back.
Right. Religious.
They haven't
Turned into another religion.
They haven't been able to
And then
contain
the Lord has to break the new movement, the new people out of that old one.
So let me just put on the board what my napkin. First of all, I start out by talking about what the old wineskin is.
Yes.
And that's the current church structure that we have. And, we don't want to be critical. When we discuss these things, we're not critical about them.
No.
It's just the way things are.
Yeah.
And so, we're for whatever anybody's
Well,
doing.
the Lord
for
has
them.
used all of those old wineskins from the past. You just can't
Obviously.
fit the new movement into them.
Right. So, and my stick figures are, leave something to be desired at times. But here's the minister and the pulpit. Most of the time these days they're plexiglass, and he's got a Bible on it. Okay? And it works like this. He's on a platform. and probably got a piano, and a worship team. So he's not the only one up there. There's some people back here.
The drums and guitar, depending on what
Drums
style of
and
church
guitar.
you're going to.
Yeah.
The light of heaven shining upon you.
Some lady that's leading songs, or some man, whatever. So we do have other people up here on the platform with him. Some of them are sitting down. They might be student ministers,
Yeah, the assistant pastor, the youth pastor, maybe.
youth pastor, assistant pastor. You can probably do better than some of my stick figures here. But the congregation is out here like this. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the old wineskin, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah. And depending on, you know, how personable he is, how inspirational he is, how good looking he is, how funny he is, we could just keep on drawing.
Yes, okay.
But you get the picture. This is the congregation.
Yeah.
Okay, and the connection is like everything comes down from above.
Okay.
So it's a hierarchy system.
Here's your connection. And what he has from God, he communicates it to the people in this way, which is not bad. This is better than these people having nothing or not having any experience with God or no place to go to be a part of something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we're not critical of this.
Yeah.
But here's how it works. It's all like this. Okay. And everything goes that direction, except occasionally you have this kind of a situation come the other way.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use a dotted line for that. But most of that has to do with giving, like finances or time. But for now, we'll just say finances. So there's a money flow in that direction. Because whenever you have this system here,
Yes.
whenever you got this system, you got bills.
Yes.
So
Big building.
you got real estate, you got a building, you got electrical bills, you got, maybe you have a television program.
Yes.
And so it takes money. So the people in the congregation furnish money for the ministers or the organization's
Yes.
vision to reach the world for the Lord. Now, of course, to kind of soften this a little bit, the church world has actually gotten smarter, thanks to Pentecostal men in Korea, and they've started these cell groups that are beside the church. But within the cell group, you have the same kind of because you have to maintain control. Because when you're in these kind of situations, you can't lose control.
And they're also not independent from they still are under the pastor too.
They're still answerable because everybody needs to be
Right.
answerable.
They're all under.
Everybody has to be in subjection or under a covering or responsible to somebody else, kind of an idea. Okay? Right. And that's where.
There's another picture, but there was a poster that I saw at this big church we visited,
Yeah.
and it went, I forgot.
You can stay right where I'm at.
Oh, okay.
I'll move in.
So this is another picture. It was like in the foyer when you went to the church, and there was an umbrella,
Yes.
and then there was another smaller umbrella, and then a smaller umbrella, and way down at the bottom they have this happy saint under all these coverings, right? And of course, this probably was the head pastor, and this is probably a co-pastor, and this is probably a youth leader. And it's raining in the picture, and there's the sun shining on the rain, and it's all beautiful. But one thing I noted is that the rain couldn't reach this. That was the only person get in the rain. But it's like
Yeah.
this And what the poster said something about being under a covering was how you have all these coverings over you to protect you. But
Yes.
but that's not talked about in the Bible. That is not a scriptural message. Because Jesus is our head.
Yes.
The body has one head.
Yes.
The hand, which is the ministry, is not over the other parts of the body.
No.
This is not the description you find in the Bible of how the body of Christ is supposed to work. And
What
Well,
if
Jesus
down-
has something to say about that.
yes, so yeah, right. This verse right here, Matthew 20, 25 through 27, which I have marked.
Yes.
When I read that, it settled it for me. I said, because one thing Gary keeps saying is the words of, the Bible is the court of truth, but Jesus' words are the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And so, if something is being taught, even though there may be scriptures that you can use to show it, if it is contradictory to the words of Jesus, and he said things very clearly,
Wow. Yeah.
then you got to take a second look at it. You have to. And this is what Jesus said. He said, okay, so the context is the disciples are fighting it out over who's the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
And James and John want to sit on either side of Jesus in the kingdom, and the other disciples are mad at them because they're doing the whole over-under, authority over, and some people are going to be under thing. Who's the greatest? Who's up and who's down? And so Jesus calls them, and he says, Jesus called them unto him, and he said, because this is Jesus talking,
Mm-hmm.
you can't argue with it. You know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be so among you.
Yes.
But whoever will be the great among you, let him be your minister. So we've changed the word minister to mean something that it doesn't mean. Minister means a servant.
Yes.
Someone who ministrates.
Yes.
That's where you get the word ministrates.
Lena,
And whoever will be, and whoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant.
Yes. Now this old wineskin reminds me of the old priesthood, when the high priest had to do the sacrifices for all of the nation, of the Jewish nation, and the common man couldn't do it himself.
Well, there is some
Similarities.
similarities, but here's the difference. In most of Christianity, now not all of it,
Yes.
but in most of Christianity, the minister represents God to the people.
Yes.
In Judaism, when the high priest was making these offerings and sacrifices, he was representing the people to God.
Oh.
And that's the difference.
Okay.
Now, there is some denominations or organizations in the Christian world that have a priesthood that is more like the Jewish priesthood that you read about in the Bible.
Okay.
Yeah. And they'll turn their back on the congregation and they'll perform certain things where they're representing the people to God. But then when they turn back around and do the message and do these other things. And another thing is the temple worship was the temple was not set up as a building, where we think of a temple now as a cathedral downtown where people go on Sunday morning.
Yes.
The temple, or even the tabernacle in the Bible, was not like that. It was not a place where the people gathered to sing songs and raise their hands and hear a message from the Lord. It didn't work like that.
Yes.
That was strictly a ceremonial parable. It was sort of like a play that was
An illustration.
an illustration demonstrating how God's kingdom was to work,
No.
and pointing to the coming of Jesus when they made these sacrifices.
Yes.
So that's the difference between the temple that the Jews had, that you read about in the Old Testament, and the one that Jesus came to, and what we call the church today. thing is that the preacher in our churches represents God to the people. And back there, they represent the people to God.
Oh, okay.
So, that's kind of about as far as we can go with this one today. So, I tell you what, next time we get together,
Okay, about the new wineskin now, we talked about the old
Yeah,
one.
we talked
Now
about the
what are we
old-
gonna do?
we talked about the old wineskin. Now here's what the old wineskin leads to.
Yes.
The old wine, and here's what we'll talk a little bit about next time. The old wineskin leads to abuse of power,
Yes.
okay?
Okay.
And people have gotten sick of that, and so the home church movement has sprung up out of that for
Yes.
people who don't want to be vulnerable to these kind of things anymore. And
Yes.
this happens in Protestantism, Catholicism, Pentecostalism, televangelists. All you have to do is while you're standing in the grocery line, read the headlines on a lot of the scandal magazines to find out that abuse of power is rampant in every aspect of Christianity.
Yes.
All right. Which caused the home church movement to spring up. And when people get sick of authority and being abused by it, and I'm not saying that everybody abuses their power, but when they get sick of being vulnerable to the abuse of power, they end up with anarchy in a lot of these home meeting things. And anarchy does not work. We'll talk a little bit why. It does not work. Then,
You have to have the new wineskin. You can't just know that the old wineskin is bad and throw
Right.
it out.
what
You have
is
to have
the
the
new?
new one.
Okay?
Yeah.
Ah.
What
So-
is the new, how do I put it? Wineskin?
We can't wait to see what it is. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
See you next time.
Thanks, Steven.
You're welcome, Gary.
What would we do without you? I don't ever want